Happy Sunday, Dolphins fans, and welcome to Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Nic Rohloff. Listen, the Dolphins lost in Week 3, obviously, but the rest of the NFL is set to get kicked off on this Sunday afternoon. And before those games started, I wanted to bring some Dolphins news because we finally got the update we were looking for on tight end Darren Waller. We'll get right into it. It was said by head coach Mike McDaniel on Friday following the loss to Buffalo in Week 3 that Darren Waller is expected to make his Miami Dolphins debut this upcoming Monday night against the New York Jets. Obviously, Miami returns home 0-3. They're going to be wearing their rivalry jerseys, and they're going to have Darren Waller for the first time. He has basically been MIA this entire process after being acquired. He did not really participate in any practices, really didn't do anything in the preseason, and then all of a sudden has this hip injury that keeps him out for the first 3 weeks of the year. So glad that he will at least be making his Dolphins debut, because I thought we were going to have another Will Fuller or an OBJ to where these guys basically never played for the Miami Dolphins. But this is why you subscribe to the channel, because we'll have you updated on all Miami Dolphins news, regardless of how bad this football team is. We'll be here every day bringing you daily content. But Darren Waller playing for Miami, although it's probably too late in the season, and I really don't expect much from Darren Waller considering he hasn't practiced, and he's a guy who didn't even play football last year. He was retired and is looking to just make an NFL debut. Look, you can't expect him to come out and really impact this Miami Dolphins offense in a massive way or really give you anything. And remember, you have to be able to block relatively well to fit in this Mike McDaniel system because it is so required. And that's why Julian Hill is still employed by this football team, even though he probably should not. But the moral of the story is this. The two tight ends the Dolphins have thrown out there for the first 3 weeks of the season have been absolutely abysmal. It's been a joke, and we've known that Julian Hill is a joke. We know Tanner Conner is a joke. I said it before the year. The tight end room in Miami was the worst position group that they had on the roster. Yes, was cornerback concerning. There's no doubt about that. I said it was bad, and I said it was the worst cornerback room in the NFL. But I also said the Dolphins tight end room is the worst in the National Football League, and it was actually worse for its position group than the cornerback room. And I think that is proved to be correct. Tanner Conner, through 3 games, is the 66th graded tight end on Pro Football Focus out of 68. He has been not good whatsoever, and we talk about being able to block in this offense. He has a 43.7 run blocking grade and a 31.4 pass blocking grade. The guy has been awful, and I don't think he runs that clean of routes either. There's been a lot of debate online on social media about the Tua pick against the Bills on Thursday Night Football. Who was to blame? Was it the play calling? Was it the play design? Was it Tua? Like, what was the reasoning for it? Well, one of the reasons people are blaming it not on Tua, I will still blame it on Tua, but some people will go to Tua's defense, saying that Tanner Conner should have ran a route more in to hold that linebacker so that little slant hitch to Jalen Waddle could have had the space and time to get open rather than Conner running a little bit of an out shitty route, if you will, and allowing the linebacker Bernard to undercut Waddle for the interception. But that's neither here nor there. Julian Hill, out of the 68 qualified tight ends, is ranked 38th. Now, he has blocked a little bit better, 63.5 run block, 51.4 pass block, but is an absolute zero. A zero in the passing game. I mean, through 3 weeks, folks, 3 weeks, the Dolphins, who have thrown for about 607 yards, 37 of them have come from the tight end position. Tanner Conner has 3 receptions and 33 yards on 6 targets. Julian Hill has 1 reception on 4 yards with 1 target. The tight end position has been a zero for the Miami Dolphins. And it's honestly really frustrating because it's like, yeah, I know in the past when the Dolphins offense was elite in 2022, elite in 2023, there was no tight end room. But last season, we saw how a solid tight end, a.k.a. Jonnu Smith, would be able to help this offense. And yes, it came in to replace a lot of the Tyreek Hill production, Jalen Waddle, with those guys being hurt. You didn't have Tua for 6 games. But I think it just makes more of an impact on this offense in terms of being able to block in, also be a threat over the middle of the field. And listen, hindsight's 2020. I know some people wanted to take this man on draft night. I was indifferent about it. I thought he would have been a very good pick for Miami, but at the time you didn't need him. But a lot of people are going to bring this back to Tyler Warren. The Dolphins passed on him with the 13th pick. He went the pick after 14th overall to the Indianapolis Colts. Miami obviously went with Kenneth Grant, who really hasn't done much through 3 weeks of the year. Meanwhile, Warren looks like a stud in Indianapolis. And I understand some Dolphins fans may be upset about that, but the truth of the matter was this: at the time of the draft, you did not think you were going to trade Jonnu Smith. So you thought you were going to have Jonnu for this year, and you needed to start rebuilding that interior defensive line and offensive line. So I didn't hate the move going trenches at the time. And just because Warren looks like a stud, which we all knew he was going to be good, but listen, it's too early to call Kenneth Grant a bad pick at this time. But I just know some fans are upset we didn't go with Tyler Warren. If you should be upset about anything, it should be about the fact Miami passed on going with Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron. That's what you should be upset about, not missing out on Tyler Warren, because at the time, taking a tight end player, it just didn't make a lot of sense because Miami had Jonnu Smith, and the positional value isn't just as high as a cornerback or an interior defensive lineman or an offensive lineman. But either way, Darren Waller is expected to make his return. Do you think he's going to be productive for Miami? Real question. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Do you think Darren Waller is going to be any good? All right, after we got the tight end talk out of the way, I did want to transition and segue this rest of this video of talking about potential quarterbacks. I know it's a little early, but most of us are kind of out on Tua being the long-term guy in Miami. I made a couple of videos about it over the past 48, 72 hours since that game on Thursday night against Buffalo. And my belief in that has only grown stronger, I should say. I just don't think he can be a franchise QB. His limitations, his declining play, his injury history. Like, once Miami can get out of that contract, I believe they should, and they will. And the real talk is, like, whenever the Dolphins change regimes, replace Chris Grier, replace Mike McDaniel, which is, I hope, at least in the next 365 days, whether it's in season or in January when the season concludes, it doesn't matter. As long as Stephen Ross does not have those two back in a position of power in this organization next year, I will be relatively happy. But with that being said, a new regime means a new quarterback. Now, I don't think Tua will be cut. I don't think he will be traded, because I don't know who would trade for Tua. And a cut this offseason would leave Miami with $99 million in dead cap, when you can just wait until after 2026, cut him before the 2027 year, and only have $38 million in dead cap. So that makes a lot more sense. But a new regime could absolutely be drafting a quarterback inside the top 5 of the NFL draft. Miami currently sits with the number 1 overall pick. That's because before Sunday games kick off, they're the only 0-3 team. But either way, Miami, the way this season is kind of progressing here, is expected to be picking inside the top 10. And if that's the case, you have to seriously consider going with one of the top quarterbacks in this draft class. And we have consistently mentioned it a little bit here, that the top quarterbacks could be considered Drew Allar from Penn State, Garret Nussmeier from LSU, LaNorris from South Carolina, John Mateer from Oklahoma, and then a new guy has really popped up here but is rising the ranks, and that is Fernando Mendoza, the Indiana quarterback. He is 6'5", transfer from Cal. He was actually born in Miami, Florida, and he is continuing to rise my ranks as a potential Dolphins draft target at quarterback if they wanted to go that route. My number 1 guy, I think, at this point is LaNorris from South Carolina. There's a lot of highs with Sellers. There's a lot of lows. But the truth is, the arm talent he has, his velocity mixed with the athleticism that he has and possesses, you just simply can't find that often. And if you hire a good coach and a good quarterback coach and offensive coordinator, and you trust them to develop a young QB, I feel as if Sellers is probably my top guy, because the way that you can build an offense around him, I will not compare it to Lamar Jackson because he is a one of one, but the way you can script up him in the run game, but also just rely on him to make plays out of structure and in structure, I think he's improved in that regard. Sure, is he inaccurate at times? Does he make bonehead decisions? Oh, absolutely. But that's what all young quarterbacks do. No young quarterback prospect is perfect. So to me, taking the growing pains with Sellers could be worth it in the end. If Miami has an opportunity to draft him, I would be all in on Sellers. I thought he played really solid against Missouri on the road in that game last night. But the quarterback that I think might be number 2 on my board at this point is that Miami native Fernando Mendoza. I know a lot of people will talk about Nussmeier, talk about Allar. Talking about Matier wasn't that impressive to me against Auburn. I know it was a sluggish defensive battle, and he's had moments earlier the year, but I think Matier is very good, and I don't want to get that twisted. I just don't know if he's up there with me, and maybe I'm overvaluing this Illinois football team, and I know it was at home, but Fernando Mendoza went out there. I think he only had 2 incompletions at home against a top 10 team in Illinois. Maybe they're a little bit overranked, but still, threw 5 touchdowns, and the way that he just is confident in the pocket. I think he's got a quick arm motion. I think he throws a good, clean spiral. It's accurate. He can layer the football. He is not immobile. He can make some plays out of structure. Is he going to wow you with his legs and you're going to run designed runs with him? No, probably not, but he can certainly make plays out of the pocket. Like, I think Joe Burrow is a good example here, not comparing him there, but in terms of Burrow is an athlete. He can make things happen out of structure better than Tua, because Tua really can't do it whatsoever, but you're not saying, oh, Burrow's an athlete, he's a guy that you're going to make design runs for. No, I think that's kind of where Mendoza would be in terms of his athleticism, but the way he had his accuracy on display in a primetime big game, biggest one of his career, most eyeballs on him, NBC, 7:30 Eastern time. Him to go out there and ball out was just so impressive to me. So I really like Fernando Mendoza. And then if you're ranking the top 5 outside of that, 3 through 5 could be interchangeable between Matier, Nussmeier, and Allar. Allar has the highest ceiling. He's got the biggest arm. He's 6'5", but he is really inaccurate, and his decision-making is very, very questionable. Nussmeier is probably the most polished out of the 3 there, with good accuracy, good leadership, good pocket awareness. And then Matier's that kind of dual athlete type of guy who's got a strong arm and can make some things happen. But I watched a lot of inaccurate balls against Auburn yesterday, and even just simple throws where it's just like a 5-yard drag route, guy's kind of open. He kind of hits him on the back shoulder, which slows him down a little bit, when if he hits him in stride, he can really take off and pick up an extra 5-7 yards potentially. So there's a lot to like with Matier, but there's a lot of growing that needs to happen there as well. And I know it's maybe a little bit early to start really breaking down QBs, but I know some fans are excited about it. So I wanted to talk about the Darren Waller news, and I wanted to talk about the quarterback play that happened on Saturday in this last week of college football. And if I had the power to make my QBs where I'd want in the draft right now, my top 5, and Miami's taking one, if they are in the top 5 or 7 picks, I'm going Sellers 1, Mendoza 2. I'm probably going Nussmeier 3, Matier 4, Allar 5. That's my top 5. That'll do it for today's show. Enjoy your NFL Sunday if you're going to watch all the games. We might be back later for another video. We'll see, but appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure you hit that sub button. Go Fins.